Alright, we have the power valves reassembled, ready to go back in. They're heading back up into where they came from. Don't forget to reassemble this set down here, because obviously once you get it in there, you're not going to be able to do it. So the tricky part is getting this whole assembly shoved into there. Straightforward. I dry fitted to make sure that they all lined up properly. There's only one way that the valves will go in, otherwise they won't seat flush. And when you get a close-up view of what's going on in there, you can see that there's a little bit of a shoulder with where the valve housing is, right above that screw hole to the bottom left. They have to seat flush into that shoulder right there. If they don't seat flush, then it's in the wrong socket and you need to move it over. So we're going to put this valve assembly up in there, and once I get it in, I'll get back to you. Alright, we have it back in there. The larger holes must go at the top of the assembly because that's where the springs are going to return back into. So you can see the two larger holes at the top with the third hole in the middle. That's where we're going to put one of those 512 metric screws with washer on, and there's a retaining thing that holds the springs in. When you're putting this part back together, the springs need to go down evenly, and there needs to make sure that there's not a bend in the retaining clip. It should sit nice and flat on that. So I'll put that in there and we'll show you what it looks like. You can see we got it all back together. They're in there. The tabs on that retaining clip need to go at the bottom of the retaining clip, but it's only going to fit one way. You'll see what I mean when you put yours back together, that if you try to flip it to the other side, they won't line up with the spring holes. So there's the top part. We're going to do the bottom left one in the corner, the bottom right one in the bottom right corner, and then we'll be done. Then we'll put the gasket on and put the cover on, and we'll call that power valve done. Cover on I was alluding to is we need the actuator arm that's going to move these things. So here's a little actuator arm. It's only going to go in one way because otherwise you won't be able to access the set screw that adjusts, or the set screw that holds it all together. So it clips onto the power valve up here, and then the shaft just slides right in. As it's sliding in, don't forget to put the spacer on the other side. That once you get it through. I'm going to go ahead and do this without the camera because, as you can see, every time I try, I drop it. Oh, there it goes. So that's half of it there. Then you take the spacer and place it on the other side, like so, and slides the rod. You saw the hole on the left side of the actuator arm, the little arm. That's going to slide in there. Then you need to line it up towards the bottom where that set screw hole is, right down there, that hole right there. Then we'll put the set screw back through. Maybe a very tiny amount of Loctite if you're going to do it on there. Don't go overzealous with it, otherwise it'll be a nightmare to get out, like it was the first time I pulled this thing out. So we're going to put that set screw in, then we can put the covers back on. Alright, there you have it. The power valve assembly reinstalled. When this actuator is pulled by the power valve motor, pulls on the cable and it rotates the power valve, adjusting things. It's got even further, but that's what the springs will help push that back in. It doesn't want to sit there naturally at that position there. You can probably barely even see it on camera. But the springs will push that back into the position it needs to be. And this is how the power valve's working for you. So we're going to put the cover back on. You have to make sure that the set screw here is seated properly. You basically do that by slowly spinning the shaft around and slowly tightening and loosening until it falls into the hole that's on the shaft. So that's how we do that. Just a cover to install, and this will be almost ready to go. Then we'll install all the hardware parts that go back on the shaft output here. Okay, here's going to be one of the harder parts here. It's really hard to see on the camera view here, but we're going to have to install this spring for the rotating power valve thing. So what needs to happen is, on this spring, the part of the elbow bend is in the correct position up here, where it comes from the base, comes out this way, then down. The other part here is, this spring here needs to be on the other side of the stopper arm. That's the part that's a real pain to get to the other side, while having the actuator pulley part on the motorcycle. So we're going to put the actuator pulley part on the motorcycle with the spring on the other side. Okay, we're getting this back together here. I installed the large washer with screw that holds on this bottom clip to the power valve assembly. It keeps it from pulling in and out, so it's indexed so you can see the power valve assembly turning there. Well, the arm inside turning. Next is to get this spring lined up with the actual pulley piece itself, with this here pulley piece, which it's quite difficult to say the least, because you need to get this spring piece on the other side of the arm with the notch, this here notch on the pulley, pushing it on the other side, so it's spring pressured and loaded. So we'll do that part next, and we'll get back. Okay, with a little bit of trial and error, the easiest way I found to do it is to set the piece up correctly on the ground here, like so. Hopefully you'll be able to get a halfway decent detail of how it's set up here on the ground. And then we're going to move this spring part to the other side using a screwdriver. You can kind of pick it up and pry it over to the other side, and that works out best. And then we place the whole assembly, kind of slides on with a slight little bit of a twist to clear one of the spring pieces over the retention part that we talked about. This part here, the part that actually makes the power valve move. So that's the easiest way I found to do it, so we're going to do it that way. Okay, there we go. We have the spring thing back on. I did slide it on with the power valve pulley part in place, but I pulled it off so you can see how the spring alignment works. You can see the little tab down at the bottom is going to go in between those two, and then the cables are pretty much self-explanatory due to their lengths. They're only going to line up in one hole. So we slide this part in like so between the two springs. So once again we get those two parts between the two springs. You gotta get between the two springs and lined up on that hole right there. That's what we're doing right now. I just had it too. There we go. All set. Now we put the cover, the main screw cap back on top of that, which is this one here with a big washer that goes on it. Like so. All goes back together, and that's one completed power valve. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully it helped solve some of the questions, or answer any of those questions that you had about redoing the power valve, and hopefully it works out for you. Next up, we're going to be doing some radiator work. Since we had to remove the radiator, we might as well flush it out and refill it.